Alright, you know why we're here. You clicked on the video. We're going to talk about something that's undeniably awesome no matter who you are. It's an iconic symbol of 1980s cool, and it is back in a big way. We're talking, of course, about the Walkman. There is nothing cooler than a vintage Walkman. This video has been a long time coming. I teased it several episodes ago, and now we are finally doing it. I'm excited. I'm excited for several reasons. Number one, I just really like these things. They're great. But the biggest reason is because I'm going to show you not one, not two, but 6 different portable cassette players and Walkmans that we've managed to pick up over the past few months. And here's the best part. You ready? They all actually work. Crazy, right? Now, because I don't want to make you sit here for 20 minutes while I go over every single little redundant thing about 6 different devices, which are functionally pretty similar, we're just going to cover things that are special about each one with respect to one another. Then at the end, I'll let you hear them all too. And we'll start with this one. The Sanyo MGP611. It's a bass expander. That's useful if you're fishing and you catch something that's under the limit for... I think that's a bass expander. That would make more sense. The switch for that's up at the top. It's essentially a bass booster. This unit's a lot newer than the other ones that we found, and it's about as bare bones as possible. It can play, it can fast forward, and stop. That's pretty much it. It doesn't even rewind. There's just a post where the second cog would be. It's so simple, in fact, that they're touting its auto stop system. It doesn't even have an external power input, but it does have a clip, and I guess that's a good thing. Let's see. Next we have... this one, the Sony WM2011. It's actually part of their Walkman line. This is actually my own personal Walkman that I've had for a few years. It's pretty basic as well. It was actually a cheaper model when it came out in 1991. But this one is a step up from the last one because it actually rewinds. Yeah, and it can run on external 3-volt DC power. But I want to point out something that makes this my favorite cassette player out of the whole group. This is the only one that has little features molded into the plastic that protect the switches from getting bumped or crushed. And they put tiny little feet on it so it stands up nicely. Call me crazy, but that kind of detail matters to me, especially when you find it in a budget player like this. Alright, so what's next? The Sanyo MGR62. This is definitely the heaviest one I have here. I'll explain why in a second. Even without a tape, it still weighs over 12 ounces. And it's bright red. But now we're getting into more advanced features because from here forward, all of these players have built-in AM/FM radios. It can even pick up multiplexed stereo FM signals. Remember that from the last video? Go watch it. This one is very clearly from the 80s with that dual window in front. And next to it, they left a hole to adjust the azimuth of the playhead. Now why is it so heavy? That's because it uses 3 AA batteries instead of 2. It runs at 4.5 volts instead of 3. Unfortunately, like the other Sanyo, this one also does not rewind. But you can just, flip the tape over and fast forward it. All right, next one. Let's see. Oh, nice. A Magnavox. This is the Magnavox D6541 personal stereo cassette. It has teal and lavender accents, so it's undeniably 80s, and it's also able to pick up stereo FM signals. Something to note about these, you want to keep them in tape mode when they're not being used. That's off when they're not playing. They'll drain the batteries right away if you leave them in radio mode, even with the volume all the way down. This one keeps its barrel plug on the top next to the headphone jack. I have to comment on this one. It was very, very gummed up with old grease. It took a lot of fiddling with the little gearbox inside to get it to work. I ended up using a slightly undersized belt and a not insignificant amount of Q-tips and alcohol to bring this guy back to life. All right, next we have... Nice. Another Walkman. Sony WMF41, which came out in 1987. This one also has built-in AM/FM radio, but it doesn't have a separate setting for FM mono and stereo like the others. But it does allow you to select between normal and chrome or metal tapes. And an interesting feature on that same switch, when it's in radio mode, it selects between local and DX, which means distance. That's useful if you're trying to listen to a local station that has other national stations overlapping each other, or vice versa. It's kind of unusual on something that's primarily a cassette player. but I feel like this one has that quintessential Walkman vibe to it. The only downside with it, whoever had it before lost the spring that keeps the lid closed. Fortunately, when you're playing a tape, it stays closed, but I'm going to use a rubber band all the same. All right, last but certainly not least is the most feature-rich player of the whole group. This is the Sanyo MG95. It has AM, FM mono, and FM stereo radio, normal and metal tape selector, and rewind. But what this one does that the others do not, auto reverse. It features 2 complete capstans and take-up cogs. You can switch directions with these 2 buttons here, and there's a lighted indicator that tells you which direction you're playing. That light also doubles as a battery indicator when it's in radio mode. It also has an anti-rolling mechanism. That's there to stop the tape playback from being distorted as you're moving it around. But the best part? It has an eject mechanism. All the rest of these units you have to open manually. This one pops open with the stop button, and it has the silver Sportster carrying case lined with blue velvet that has admittedly picked up its fair share of trace evidence over the past few decades. But isn't that handsome? Now, only 2 of these worked properly when we bought them. The rest of them took more than a little TLC to get them going again. It was mostly belt changes and cleaning, and a few adjustments to the motor speed and the azimuth of the playhead. And they are not perfect by a long shot, but they're functional enough that we can at least get them to play and you can hear each one of them. Ready to do this? Join me. I almost forgot. Very important when you're listening to a Walkman. Perfect. As I have said many times before, I am not a repair guy, so I am sure these could have been made to sound a hell of a lot better than the dumpster fire that you just heard. But that would require someone who actually knows what they're doing. And that leads me to the depressing portion of this video. A couple of them that we've picked up have been far beyond my own powers of resurrection, small as they are. It's upsetting, but we know that we can still sell them for cheap on eBay for parts because at least they're in good cosmetic shape. I do not like to throw things out if at all possible. All right, so which one was your favorite? It was pretty obvious which one sounded the best, but which one do you think looked the coolest? And do you own a portable cassette player? If so, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to see what you guys have found over the years. Also, what would you like to see next? Speakers? More components? Something kind of unusual? Another turntable? Sorry, it's a lot of questions. But yeah, I'll see you next time. No, not this time. Stay metal, guys.